You are the only human awake on another world's ocean. Your name barely matters now. Out here, you are simply the pilot, strapped into a pressurized bubble the size of a small kitchen, floating where no skin can ever touch the water and live. The descent module hits with a soft, wrong sound. Not a splash. A slow, heavy slap, like the sea outside is thicker than water and colder than any winter Earth has known. Minus 179 degrees. Liquid methane and ethane, black as oil, rolling in long, low swells beneath your hull. Above you, the sky is not black. It is a bruised orange, a haze so thick the sun is only a dim smear near the horizon. This is first light of a Titan day that will last 16 Earth days. You have arrived at dawn on a world that turns once every 3 weeks. Your hands are still clenched from the descent. You force them open and begin the checklist. Cabin pressure, 1.45 bar, holding. Buoyancy, positive. The boat rides high in this strange, low-density sea, in gravity a seventh of home. Power core, warm and steady. Comms, transmitting. But Earth will not hear you for nearly an hour and a half, and its reply will take just as long to crawl back across 1.4 billion kilometers. You unlatch the harness. You float half a centimeter off your seat, then settle. Through the porthole, you watch the first waves lift and slap the hull. Small, syrupy, patient. No vessel humanity has ever built has floated on this. You are the first. The thought arrives quietly and takes your breath. Then the hull creaks, a long, groaning complaint of metal. The cryogenic liquid is stealing heat from your boat faster than any model predicted. You watch the thermal readout dip again. You are a warm thing in a sea that wants to freeze you solid. You breathe. The heaters answer. The creaking eases. A jolt shudders through the floor. Below you, the spent descent stage releases and falls away, sinking into black depths no light has reached. There is no climbing back up the way you came. That door is closed forever. Fear loosens into something larger. Awe trembling in your chest. You are alive. You are afloat. And an entire ocean, older than life itself, waits in every direction. What lives down there, in a sea that has never known a sun? You power the thrusters. The boat swings its bow toward an unmapped coast, and you begin. You steer toward the coast at half throttle, and the black swells give way to something braided and pale. A methane river, or a dozen of them, pouring out of the highlands into the Mare. The water outside darkens and lightens as fresh, cold current threads through old. This is an estuary no eye has ever seen. To your right, cliffs rise out of the haze. Not rock, water ice, hard as granite at this cold, glowing faintly amber where the dim sun catches their edges. They stand in silence, carved by liquid that would kill you in a breath. You tilt the camera up and let the lens drink them in. The wind here is slow and heavy, barely a whisper by Earth's measure. But on this thick air, it pushes real weight against your sail fin. You tack across it, bows swinging left, then right, zigzagging up the shoreline. Each leg carries you past a new headland, a new inlet, a new mouth where a river braids into the sea. You begin dropping sonar buoys. One every kilometer, small bright floats that ping the depths and stitch their echoes back to you. On your screen, a shape assembles itself line by line. The true floor of a Titan shore, sloping shelves and drowned channels painted into a display that has never held this data before. You open the logbook. The map is yours to name. You give the estuary a name and the cliffs a name, and for a moment the loneliness lifts into something like pride. You are drawing a coastline into human memory. Awe steadies into purpose. Then a buoy pings something wrong. You lean close. On the seabed, 40 meters down, the sonar returns show a pattern. Ridges, evenly spaced, repeating with a regularity that geology does not make. Rock does not line itself up like that. Not by chance. You hold your breath and rerun the scan. The pattern holds. Rows. Almost a lattice. Your heart begins a slow, hard knock against your ribs. It is probably nothing. Cryovolcanic terracing, fractured ice, a trick of the echo. Probably. But you cannot leave it. You throttle up and swing the bow off the safe surveyed channel, out over deeper black, and you watch the fuel gauge tick down as you commit to the detour. There is no coming back to this exact minute of margin. The choice is made. You bring the boat to a hover above the anomaly. Through the porthole, deep down, the sonar hints at a faint sheen across those ridges. Too smooth, too dark. Is it a rock or a residue? You ready the sample probe. Slowly, into the freezing dark, you begin to lower it. The probe comes back up frosted white, a thin skin of ice already forming where the sea's cold clings to it. You seal it into the airlock chamber and cycle it inward. Steel ticks as it warms a few degrees. Methane droplets bead on the metal and slide, quick and glassy, into the drain grooves. You watch through the lab bay's small window, breath fogging the glass. The lab bay is barely a bay at all, a fold-down bench, a microscope viewer bolted to the wall, a rack of pipettes no thicker than pencil leads. You pull on the insulated gloves. Your fingers feel enormous, clumsy. The sample chamber is frosted at its edges, a clouded eye you must peer through. You draw a droplet of the dark sheen into the pipette. It moves wrong, too thin, too eager, spreading across the glass slide like oil finding its level. You slot the slide beneath the viewer and lean your eye to the cup. At first, nothing, a grey blur. You adjust the focus ring, and the world underneath resolves. Cells, not cells like Earth's. No water inside them, no fat-walled membranes that would shatter at this cold. These are something else, tiled edge to edge across the field of view. Tiny compartments walled in the nitrogen-rich membranes the labs on Earth once sketched as exotisms and called impossible to prove. They tile like scales, like a mosaic laid by a patient hand. A mat, a living film, stable in liquid methane, scraped from a seabed no sun has ever warmed. Your hands begin to shake. Not the cold. The heaters hold. It is something rising up your arms from somewhere deeper. The pipette rattles against the rack. You set it down before you drop the only sample you have, the only proof, and you grip the bench edge until your knuckles ache. Life. Not a fossil, not a chemical ghost. Living structure holding its shape, beyond Earth. The first. Curiosity detonates into a joy so large, it feels like grief. You laugh, and the sound is strange in the small cabin, and your eyes sting. You photograph the field. You log it, species 1. You compose the transmission and send it into the dark. But Earth will not hear for nearly an hour and a half, and its reply is 3 hours away. For now, the greatest secret in human history belongs to you alone, unshared, carried across an ocean older than life. If the seabed is alive, what floats above it? You seal the sample, cap the chamber, and steer the bow back into open water. You steer back into open water, and the sea changes colour. Not black now, but faintly speckled. A scatter of golden motes suspended just beneath the surface, catching the dim orange light like dust in a sunbeam. It spreads for kilometres, a glittering slick riding the swells, drifting where the current takes it. You throttle down to a crawl. Whatever this is, it does not want disturbing. You rig the fine net from the aft port, a mesh no wider than a fingernail's weave, and pay it out slowly into the cold. The line goes taut. The boat leans. You haul, arm over arm, gloves stiff, and the net rises dripping with pale gold. In the airlock, warming, the catch resolves into a colony. Hundreds of tiny bladders, each no bigger than a grape, translucent and gas-filled, linked by fine threads into a raft. Under the viewer, their walls glow. The same nitrogen-rich membranes as the seabed mat, but blown into buoyant spheres. They float because they make themselves float, holding pockets of vapour against the methane sea. You watch one bladder pulse, slow and deliberate. The labs on Earth once sketched creatures like this. Colonial drifters that might harvest acetylene raining down from the haze-fed sea, metabolizing the sky itself. Speculation, they called it. Now it drifts in your net, alive. You photograph it. You log it. Species 2. 2 of 5. The joy comes quieter this time, and it carries an edge. The seabed was alive. The water column is alive. This ocean is not the empty grave you sailed onto. It is crowded, layered, teeming in ways you cannot yet count. You are not exploring a desert. You are trespassing in a world. Then an alarm chirps. The intake filters are choking. Drifters have been sucked into your cooling ports, packing the mesh, and the cabin's scrubber analog whines as it strains against the load. You kill the intake. You purge it, backflushing gold pulp into the dark, and the whine settles. You understand what this means. For the rest of the voyage, you will purge these intakes by hand again and again, every time the slick thickens. A new chore, permanent, born the moment you learned the sea was full. You add it to the checklist without complaint. You lean to the porthole to watch the drifters scatter in your wake. And something moves beneath them. A dark shape, long and unhurried, cutting through the golden raft below your keel. And the drifters flee before it. What eats creatures that drift so freely? You reach for the throttle. You reach for the throttle, but you do not chase. You have learned this much already. Whatever hunts here will not be hurried by a warm machine crashing after it. So you cut the thrusters and let the boat go quiet, drifting on the swell, and you wait. The haze has climbed to its brightest now. Titan midday, a dull amber ceiling pressing down, the sun a wider smear near the top of the sky, throwing a weak brass light across the black water. The sea beneath you is deeper here. The sonar floor has dropped away to numbers your buoys can barely reach. You are floating over open depth, and something in it knows you are here. You go to work in silence. From the aft locker, you unspool the hull camera on its arm and clamp it below the waterline, lens angled down into the dark. On the same line, you rig a lure, a cluster of the golden drifters from your net, torn loose, bleeding their pale pulp into the current like chum. Bait made of one alien life to summon another. You lower it and kill the cabin lights so your eyes can drink the feed. For a long time, nothing. The lure turns slowly. The threads of drift pulp unravel and sink. Your own breathing is the loudest sound in the world. Then, at the edge of the frame, a shadow slides through. Long, tapered, finned along its length, moving with a muscled certainty that no drifter, no mat, no floating thing could ever own. It circles, once, twice, closing. You barely breathe. You photograph it as it passes the lens, a body built to swim in liquid methane, propelled by slow sweeps of a broad caudal fin, sensing its prey by some pressure sense you can only guess at. The labs called such a thing plausible and never dared promise it. Here it is hunting. You log it, species 3. 3 of 5. The first mobile animal beyond Earth. Then it strikes. The blow slams the hull like a dropped anvil. The boat lurches. Loose gear leaps from the bench. You are thrown against the harness straps. The camera arm shrieks and bends. And across your forward viewport, a sound like ice under a boot. A bright, spidering crack races through the outer pane and stops. You stare at it, heart hammering. The outer layer is breached. Not through. The inner panes hold, pressure steady at 1.45 bar. But wounded, and there is no repairing glass in a sea that would freeze your blood in seconds. The predator is gone, back into the black with your lure. You sit in the dim cabin with your pulse in your ears, and the awe you have carried since dawn twists into something new. Not the fear of cold, not the fear of machinery. The first real fear of the life itself. This ocean does not only drift and cling, it hunts, and it is stronger than you assumed. You touch the cracked pane once, gently, as if it might feel it. A scar the boat will carry home, if it goes home. Then you look down, past the ruined lure into water deeper than any human has descended anywhere but Earth. If life climbs this high, this fast, this fierce, how far down does it go? You seal the log. You reach for the ballast controls. Cold nitrogen hisses, the tanks flood. The boat tips its bow toward the dark. You vent and you begin to sink. The first human ever to descend beneath the surface of a methane sea. The surface closes over the viewport and the world goes dark by degrees. First, the amber ceiling dims. Then the last brush shimmer of Titan's midday thins to a smear, to a bruise, to nothing. You are sinking through black methane, and the only light left in the universe is the cold blue glow of your own instrument panel on your face. You manage the descent by hand. The autopilot was built for surface work. Down here, you trust your fingers. You crack the ballast valve a quarter turn, feel the boat's slow settle, close it again. Cold nitrogen hisses. Bubbles slide up past the cracked pane and vanish overhead. Every meter is a decision. You trim, you wait, you listen. The hull begins to speak. Not the surface groan you know, but a deeper sound. A tightening, a low, sustained note as the pressure of the sea presses in around you. You watch the depth readout climb. 40 meters, 80, 100. The sonar flagged something down here, an anomaly in the deep basin. A return too soft and too wide to be stone. 150 meters. You pass the deepest anything human has ever reached beneath an alien sea. The number keeps rising, and there is no one to say it aloud to. You whisper it to the empty cabin. It does not echo. It just falls into the dark with everything else. Then you feel it. A breath of cold on the back of your neck. You turn. On the aft bulkhead, a patch of frost is blooming inside the cabin. White crystals spreading across warm metal. A cold spot. The sea has found a seam where the insulation runs thin, and it is drinking your heat straight through the wall. The thermal readout slides. Your margin, already narrow, narrows further. You have one answer, and it costs you. You route reserve power to the heaters, watching the battery gauge drop as the frost slowly stops its creep. The math is simple and merciless. Every minute you stay down here now, you buy with time you could have spent staying alive. Your bottom clock just got shorter. You accept it. You keep sinking. The ore that carried you all day thins into something smaller and closer. You are a warm bubble of air in a column of freezing black, alone, wrapped in a boat that is losing its argument with the cold. The walls feel nearer than they did at dawn. 200 meters. The sonar sharpens. Below you, the seabed resolves. Not rock, not mud, but a soft pale drift, meters deep, settling in slow dunes. Organic snow. The rain of dead life sifting down from the crowded water above, gathered here where nothing stirs it. You bring the boat to a hover just above it and hold, breathing shallow. And then the snow begins to glow. A soft blue light, faint at first, kindling in the drifts beneath your keel, spreading, pulsing, alive. Something down here makes its own light where no starlight has ever reached. You lean toward the pane, heart in your throat. What lives at the bottom of a sea that has never known a sun? The blue glow does not stay still. You watch it breathe. Across the organic snow it kindles and fades in slow overlapping waves, and you realize you are looking at rhythm. Light with a pulse, light with intent. You crack the ballast valve, one last quarter turn, and let the boat settle deeper, toward the source. 240 meters. The seabed opens beneath you into a shallow basin scarred with dark chimneys. From their throats rises a shimmer. Warmth. Real warmth. Bleeding up through the frozen dark. Cryovolcanic vents, seeping heat from somewhere deep in Titan's ice crust into the coldest water in the solar system. And clustered around every warm mouth, anchored to the rock, the glow lives. You bring the bent camera arm down as low as its ruined joint allows and film. They are sessile things, rooted, fanned open, like frost ferns of pale tissue. Each one pulses blue from within, and the pulses answer their neighbours, rolling outward across the vent field in tides of light. The labs on Earth guessed at chemistry like this: organisms feeding not on a sun they will never see, but on the raw warmth and chemicals the vents exhale. Here it is, glowing. You log it, species 4, 4 of 5. Something in you comes loose and settles. All day the dark has felt like an absence, a grave you were trespassing across alone. It was never empty. It was full all the way down, and it was making light the whole time without you. The claustrophobia in your chest eases into something wide and quiet. Reverence. You are not the only warm and living thing in this black. Then the boat lurches. The vents are heating the methane around you into gas, and the bubbles climb in fat surging columns, shoving the hull sideways. A chimney of black rock swings up in the viewport. Close, closer. You slam the thrusters full. They fight the churn, burning fuel you cannot spare, the gauge dropping in hard visible steps as you claw the boat up and away from the rocks. The margin you committed hours ago is now truly gone. You level off, breathing hard, above the glowing field. And you wonder, these pulses, these answering waves of light, do they mean something? Is anything down here listening? You cut your lamps to nothing and float in the dark, watching them signal to one another. Then, far out at the edge of the basin, the black itself answers. A glow, vast and slow and rising. You do not touch the throttle. You have no fuel to spare and no wish to flee. So you kill the engines, kill everything but the panel's blue breath, and you hold still in the black and let it come to you. It rises from the basin's edge without hurry, and it does not stop being large. You keep waiting for the shape to resolve into something your mind can hold, and it refuses. A body the length of a whale, then longer, a slow translucent mass pleated with fins that ripple down its whole flank, drifting on currents you cannot feel. It blots out the vent glow behind it. It fills the water the way a cloud fills a sky. You barely breathe. The bent camera arm hangs useless below the keel, out of its reach, so you film through the cracked forward pane by hand, the lens pressed to the wounded glass, and you pray the inner layers hold as the thing draws alongside. Then it lights. Across its flank, patterns bloom, the same blue as the vent ferns, but ordered, sequenced, running in bands from its head to its trailing edge. It pulses at your lamps. You raise the cabin light a notch, and it answers, a slower wave rolling the other way. You dim. It dims. You are not watching an animal glow. You are watching something respond. You log it with shaking hands. Species 5. 5 of 5. A large, apparently signaling organism. And the word signaling breaks something open in you. This is not a mat, not a drifter, not a hunter feeding. This is a pattern reaching toward a pattern. The fear you have carried since the strike and the awe you have carried since dawn fuse into one enormous feeling, and it comes out of you as tears, floating off your cheeks in the low gravity, tiny beads catching the blue. You are not alone, not on this sea, not in this universe. A creature older than your whole species is speaking in light against your window, and for one held breath, you are the only human who has ever been spoken to by another world. Then life support screams. A hard red limit. Heat, power, air, all of it. The margin you spent hours ago finally gone. The cabin will not keep you alive down here another hour. You cannot stay. You cannot learn what the patterns mean. You will never know. You press your palm to the cracked glass, once, toward the great slow light. Then you blow ballast. Nitrogen roars from the tanks, and the boat tips its bow up, and you begin to rise, away from the answer, toward the far amber ceiling of the sea. You break the surface at dusk. The boat wallows up out of the black and rocks flat, and above you, the haze has turned from amber to a deep bruised red. Titan's long afternoon burning down toward its long night. The swells are calmer now, low and slow and patient. The same syrupy slap against the hull that met you at dawn. You have been under. You have come back up. You are still warm, still breathing, still the only human awake on this sea. You do not steer yet. You let the boat drift, and you open the logbook one last time for the work that brought you here. 5 entries. You read them in order, your own handwriting steadying with each line. Species 1, the microbial mat scraped from a seabed no sun has warmed. Species 2, the golden drifters in your net. Species 3, the finned hunter that cracked your glass. Species 4, the vent ferns pulsing blue. Species 5. You stop at the last line for a long moment before you can write beneath it. You assemble the package. The photographs, the sonar maps, the sample readings from the 2 vials still sealed in the airlock, the shaking footage filmed through a cracked pane by hand. You bundle it into one transmission, the largest you will ever send, and you seat the high-gain antenna toward a pale point in the reddening sky where Earth hides, 1.4 billion kilometers away. Then you record your voice. You mean to be precise, mission clean, but what comes out is quieter than that. You say the date. You say the coordinates. You say, there is life on Kraken Mare. 5 kinds. One of them looked back at me and answered my lamp with its own. You say it plainly because there is no way to say a thing this large loudly. Your voice does not echo. It never has out here. You press send. On the panel, a bar crawls, and then the packet is gone, climbing off the antenna into the dark. It will fall through space for an hour and a half before any ear on Earth hears a syllable. The reply, if it comes, is 3 hours away. For those 3 hours, the biggest news any human has ever carried belongs to you alone, unshared, floating in a small warm bubble on an ocean older than life. The elation you expected does not arrive as noise. It settles instead, enormous and silent, like the haze pressing down. The work is done. The reason you crossed a solar system is complete, sitting in a signal you can no longer touch. There is nothing left to discover, only the long way home. So you take the helm, you swing the bow back the way you came, toward your splashdown point, and beneath the keel you feel it. The tide, Saturn's slow pull, beginning to draw the whole sea in one direction. You let it take you. You are still the only human awake on this ocean, and now you are coming home to where you began. The tide does most of the work. Saturn's slow pull draws the whole sea in one long direction, and you ride it, hands light on the helm, letting the current carry you back across water you have already named. The swells lift and slap the hull, small, syrupy, patient, the same low rolling that met you at first light 16 Earth days ago. At dawn, they frightened you. Now you know them. You know their weight, their rhythm, the way they sound against a warm bubble of air. You are not sailing an empty grave anymore. You are crossing a crowded, living dark, and every black wave carries something beneath it. The navigation panel counts you down. The splashdown coordinates crawl closer, digit by digit, until they match. You cut the thrusters on the last of your fuel and hold station over the exact spot where the descent module first slapped this sea. Somewhere below, the spent stage lies sunk beyond any light. You will never climb back the way you came. You never could. Then a chime. Soft, single, impossibly far. The panel wakes with a green line, and Earth's reply falls out of the reddening sky at last. 3 hours after you sent it, 1.4 billion kilometers crossed twice. You read it once. You read it again. They received the package. They have the photographs, the maps, the 5 entries. They know. The secret is no longer only yours. You wait for the flood of relief, and instead, something quieter fills you. Awe has been settling all day, from fear to reverence to this, a tender, permanent belonging. You are forever the first human to know that life exists beyond Earth. Nothing can take that, and nothing can undo it, and it does not feel loud. It feels like coming to rest, and you understand, holding station over your first wave, that you must one day leave this sea. The boat will be recovered, or it will fail, and either way this ocean will keep living without a witness. The mats, the drifters, the hunter, the glow, the great slow light, signaling in a dark no eye will watch again. The haze dims from bruised red toward the black of Titan's long night. You rest a hand on the cold viewport, out toward the water that could never touch your skin, and let you live. Was the ocean ever truly alone out here? Or was it only you?